Hi, this is Jonathan Rosenhead, Torah and Psychotherapist. This week's Torah and Psychology post with Pasha Shemini is titled Putting the Pieces Back Together. In this week's Pasha, we read about Tumas Kelim, vessels that become impure. And there are two different types of Kelim that we read about. One is Kli Cheres and one is Kli Shataf. A Kli Cheres is something that, if it becomes impure, when Tumah enters into the vessel, it cannot be purified. And therefore the only thing that you can do with it, the only solution, is to break the vessel. But with a Kli Shataf, it can be washed, it can be cleaned, it can be put into a mikveh. And this removes the surface level impurity on the vessel. And it elevates the vessel to become pure again. And Rav Soloveitchik discusses this idea of the distinction between a Kli Cheres and a Kli Shataf and the Tumas Kelim, and he says that it can be related to man. That he says that when a person sins, you can make a distinction between the sinner, the person themselves, and the sin itself. The sin itself is like Kli Cheres, it's something which is impure, and there's nothing that you can do with it except to break it. Whereas the person himself, the sinner, is like Kli Shataf. They can be purified, they can be elevated again, they can fix their behavior, change the way they act, and this can elevate them again and purify them again. So we see here with the distinction between Kli Cheres and Kli Shataf, and the distinction of whether something can be purified relates to the person himself as well, and the distinction between the person and their actions. When we look at mental health, it's important through the therapeutic process to try to make a distinction between the mental illness and the person themselves. That a person, we don't relate to a person and say, I am mentally ill, I am a mentally ill person, or I am depressed. Rather, we say, I am a person with a mental illness. I am a person with anxiety, with depression, with trauma. We make a distinction between the two. And this is seen clearly also in narrative therapy. The process of narrative therapy is to try to teach a person to make this distinction, to make this distance between the mental illness and themselves. So we can say that the mental illness is like Kli Cheres, that it's something which is impure, something which affects the person, and it needs to be broken. But the person themselves is like Kli Shataf. They can go through a therapeutic process. Their actions, their behavior, the way they think, the way they feel can be changed, can be fixed. And this is a process of elevation, of taking a person who is suffering from something and elevating themselves to be able to function better again. This sounds nice, and it's a nice distinction to make, but sometimes a person who comes to therapy just says, I am broken, I am a Kli Cheres, I am broken, I am in pieces, and there's nothing that you can do to put me back together again. And this is where the therapeutic process is particularly effective, where we say, even if a person is broken, even if they are Kli Cheres, there is a solution. We don't just leave it as broken pieces, that these pieces can be put back together again. That through the therapeutic process, these broken shards, these broken pieces are put together again, that the person is able to accept their mental illness, to be able to live with it, to be able to accept the imperfection. And when these pieces are put back together again, something new is created, a new vessel is created. This relates also to the process of post-traumatic growth, that through the suffering, through the difficulties, something new, something better, something beautiful can come out of it. And this reminds me of the Japanese art of kintsugi, which takes broken pieces of pottery, and the pieces are put back together through gold. They're stuck together through gold. So these broken pieces create a new vessel, and it's the gold pieces that bring these pieces back together again. And this is a philosophical message of accepting imperfection. But from imperfection, beauty can be created, a new vessel can be created. And this is the message of the Kli Cheres, the Kli Shataf, that we can either go through a process of elevation, of perfecting our behavior, which is like the Kli Shataf, but even if we are broken, even if we are Kli Cheres, the pieces can still be put back together again. Have a great Shabbos and keep well.